Okay, Daisy, hello and welcome.
Hello.
Good to see you.
Yes, good to see you too.
Yeah, looking good, looking good. Liking the hair. Not that anyone can see it, but I can. Very good. New style since I last saw you. It's been a while, hasn't it?
Yeah, it has. It's been good, probably a few years.
Few years.
Yeah,
Has it? No, how long has it been? Couple of years.
couple of years. I don't know. Probably 2022 maybe was the last time.
So we're in 2025, so pretty much 3 years, really. Wow. And last time I saw you was going up to London to do some stuff with the community of young, is that the right word? Community of young people that are well, I don't know, how would you put it? What are these young people?
Uh,
Who are they?
People in recovery, I'd say. Just young people in recovery.
Yeah. And that was COVID time, wasn't it? When everyone was meant to be like, and obviously we're doing a bit of service, as you call it. We're doing some really good stuff in that community of recovery. Um, and so rewind just for context, because I was and I still do these groups, aftercare groups, and I predominantly work mainly with young men, boys coming to age, young lads. And occasionally I, get involved with helping a family and they might have a daughter. But you was on the group, wasn't you? The groups that I am involved with for the aftercare, for treatment, for various ailments, if you want to call it that.
Mhm.
That's how you used to come on those groups, didn't you?
Yeah, that's how I met you.
Okay. So for anyone listening, how old are you now?
Why did I pause for a second? I'm 20.
You're 20.
Yeah.
Okay. So if you would be so kind, your age when you first, I don't know, identified, if that's the right word, that you were struggling in your life.
Well, first identified, I don't know whether taking accountability or realizing that actually I deserve something better is probably when I was 13. But then I'd say around when I hit the 16 mark, that's when I properly realized, no, I need to do something about this, and I need to take care of myself. Something that I'm still having to work on today, but not obviously to the same extent as I used to.
Mhm.
Yeah, 16 was the big, yeah, let's do something about this.
Okay. So action is required, as you now know, as I learned, not taking action won't get you anywhere. If we stay stuck in our head, just thinking about, trying to change our reality by just thinking about it, doesn't really get us anywhere. So 16 was when you started to join the dots and start to do something about it. So I think there's a lot in what we can unpack, and discuss and explore. I don't know where you want to start with all that.
I mean, I could start from 30 and then
Go for it.
we
Yeah, go for it.
would top.
Go for it.
So yeah, I think, well, I had a very, very lucky and privileged upbringing. I love my family, and I was very, very close to every single member. Um, and then I think 13 was kind of the first time I realized like my own autonomy, and I kind of just started to be myself, and hormones all intertwined with that too. Um, and it's when I started to see the real world and just live a little. Um, and I just remember being very active, having insecurities and everything in life, but being sociable, active, and I loved sport was like one of my main outlets in life. And it's something I was very, very into. And then one Sunday, or maybe it was a Saturday evening, and I normally do hockey training on a Sunday morning. I got a message from our hockey coach saying hockey's cancelled tomorrow. And we were all a bit like, that's a bit weird. It never is. We normally play in like 5 degrees outside when it's nearly snowing or sometimes hail, and it's horrible. So for it to be cancelled, it was pretty shocking. And then I found out that one of my hockey teammates had sadly taken her own life. And that's when I just froze, and I was so utterly confused to how anybody could ever consider or even think of doing anything like that to themselves. And she was 13, which was just, I mean, the same age as I. And we were all just completely and utterly just shocked. So life had to go on. And I started to go to some bereavement groups with other people who I went to school with or who was on the hockey team with myself and her.
Did the school host those?
We did, yeah.
That's pretty cool for a school to do that, actually.
Yeah, pretty cool for school. No, it was. And actually, yeah, it was really good for, I met other people there who I didn't know had relationships with this girl, and yeah, it was really nice to come together. I mean, through difficulty as well, but it was nice that we all had a place to go. And then I think when I said earlier that kind of coming to the age of 13, starting to not turn into an adult, but how hormones and everything female hormones, and tied up with then my surroundings and just circumstantial situations of my friends starting to be with men and me exploring or going, do I want that? Do I not want that? And popularity groups and feeling, less than, more than, and kind of the start of me placing myself within a hierarchy within society or not. Kind of the main build of the ego, let's put it that way as well.
Yeah. Where do I fit in to all of this, basically? Yeah.
And I don't want to keep going back to this as like a main feature of my life, but I remember once, I think it was 2 years, probably when I was about 15, maybe just about to turn 15, I somehow got able to go onto my Snapchat or my Instagram blocked list, and I went on there and I realised my hockey teammate, I'd actually blocked her a couple
Oh, wow.
before, and that stuck with me like a knife, because I just thought, fuck, it was my fault.
Shit.
And the shame that came with that, and still irrationally I carry with me. It stuck, and it fucking burned, and I felt like an awful person. And yeah, that on top of feeling generally just having struggles with self-esteem, and finding my place, that was kind of a big hit to me, and I took that with me. I didn't really share that with others. That was kind of just, if things got bad, I'd then say, well, you did this, etc. in my head. And the bully of the brain, or the bully of my thoughts. So then what happened next? I kind of got to the stage in my life where I felt ready to explore just sexually with other people as well.
How old was you?
Probably about 15 or 16, whereas a lot of my mates, when they were younger, it was about 13, and I really felt quite scared of that. So that shame continued with me a little bit too. And I remember being with a guy and really, really liking him. and just things going a little bit too far, and me just saying, don't like this, and then he didn't stop, so then things were just kind of like, oh, okay, right. First person that you place your trust in, that didn't feel too nice.
Can I just ask you a question? Was you in that scenario? Was anyone under the influence of anything? Or was you present and was he present? Do you remember?
I assume there was probably some alcohol consumption, maybe some WKD or something like that.
Yeah, I'm not judging you on that. I'm just asking because my mind straight away wants to know that because it's like, okay, because that's a common, it's a common scenario, of coming of age and trying to explore this space, explore this area in our lives when we're younger. It don't matter whether you're a boy or girl. It don't matter.
Yeah.
And I think that's that social lubricant, if that's the right word, with alcohol or whatever it is there for a reason, right? To make this what you're describing not so fucking scary.
Yeah. And I was very lucky that what happened wasn't. I can't remember. I don't want to section it off as not being awful, but it's not. It's nothing that has. It was a distrust to myself and to my body, but nothing extreme. Let's put it that way.
Mm-hmm.
It's the correct terminology. But still, that stuck with me. And kind of then comparisons with friends and their experiences and coming away and just boasting and not really taking like, oh no shit, actually I didn't like that. And tied up in all of this, I don't want to jump again too far back, but I adore my family and I adore my sister, but because I adore her so much, I want to be her.
Is he older or younger?
Years older, yeah, she's 2.
Yeah. Okay.
And for a long time, I thought that this person, my sister, I've got to be like her. So throughout all of that period as well, not knowing myself, it was striving to be my sister or be like my sister. So comparison kind of tapped into every single aspect of my teenage years. And then I got to about 16 and it was a couple of weeks after I was with this guy. And I was playing netball and I got into a really bad netball injury, let's put it that way. And I ended up having to be airlifted to hospital.
Bloody hell, it must have been. What did you do?
I tripped over and I hit my head, and I just went unconscious. And lots of people, there was a lot of fuss.
Yeah, fucking a helicopter coming down to get you to hospital. I mean, that's not something that happens to everyone. I don't know, just send an ambulance.
Well, they sent a first responder and then I think there might have been an ambulance and then they thought I had swelling on the brain.
Oh, okay. All right, gotcha.
So that's when, because I wasn't responding, they then sent a helicopter because I live down in Cornwall. So I'm in the middle of buttfuck nowhere pretty much as well. Not as much as you, but and yeah, they sent a helicopter to get me to hospital as soon as possible.
Yeah, okay.
And then I think I had CT scans and MRI scans and everything was just fine. And I was like, what the fuck? How can this be fine? Like, you've literally airlifted me to hospital. And now you're telling me everything is easy breezy. There's nothing wrong. Why did I react like that? Was my reaction was why is everything fine and I don't feel bloody fine. And they said they'd keep me in for obs overnight. And I'd been using a bedpan and stuff because I hadn't felt strong enough to get out of bed, and I was quite afraid. And I then said to my mum, I don't want to use a bedpan anymore. I just want to be able to go home and use the loo. And I remember standing up and then just being in the most pain I've ever remembered feeling, and just falling back. I've just felt I was falling backwards, and it was kind of like a faint, but my body was just screaming at me, and my head was screaming at me. And it's what they call a vasovagal reaction. Like, I can't really remember the in and outs of the details of it, but it's a nerve in your body, and I think something just didn't respond properly.
And this is all linked. This is obviously linked to your injury, your head, and what happened.
Well, I don't know whether it's just a emotional response, which is the switch. Maybe it was. I still haven't looked into it that much, to be completely honest. But yeah, that was when I proper freaked myself out and my family out and everything, because it happened all again. So I went unconscious again. And they got me back onto my bed. And I think this is where, like, things properly then, like, tiptoed over, is when I remember when they were trying to get me to come around. I lay on a hospital bed, and as they do, they try and get you to respond. And I wasn't responding, but my eyes were open, so I could visually see everything. But I actually just couldn't speak. There was something stopping me from being able to speak. Emotional, I have no idea what that was, but I just couldn't say anything. So the doctors started to hurt me in order to get reaction, and I couldn't stop them.
How did he do that? My thoughts are very dark. It's like I'm imagining with like I don't know, like a freaking taser gun or something.
No, nothing that lethal. But just applying weight and putting things in my mouth to try and get me to say things, and I just couldn't stop. And that was, I'd say, the big switch and the need for control of my life. And I was like, fuck. All these people are doing things, and I've done things, and I haven't controlled it. I need to just knuckle down and control things. And I remember, obviously, I didn't have those thoughts then, but I remember waking up the next day, and I'd be fancy eating, and I struggled with self-esteem and kind of the way I looked and everything, and in society and family. My mum was always dieted, and so did my dad when I was younger. So I just remember just feeling my body and just feeling empty and just going, okay, this feels nice. And then that was the start of my eating disorder.
Wow.
So yeah, then that's the whole other side.
Yeah. I'm just sort of, I've never really heard you talk about that. When you come on the groups, this is sort of just filling in all the blanks. You talking us through this, and it's just quite interesting how everyone's journey is different, and life throws things at us. These little incidents, we call them littles to some people, they're very significant, and they I use the term poison thorns. They're like little tiny poison thorns, but when you put a lot of these poison thorns in you, they build up, and causes problems. So you've just described that sort of chain of events that led to you beginning, a relationship, if that's the right word, to an eating disorder.
Yeah.
Is that the right term? Am I actually using the right term? Relationship to an eating disorder? How would you put it?
Well, relationship, I'd just say my restrictive kind of controlling, which then led to my eating disorder. I don't really know relationship to my eating disorder. I'd say that's, the start of the acting of my eating disorder, or the presence of realizing, okay, this is kind of not what I want to go down. I didn't I didn't say to myself on that day, I want an eating disorder. That's not. um,
No.
but it felt, yeah, it was a relationship. It was, this makes me feel. I felt so.
Yeah, well, I had a chemical romance, so that's the way I see it. So we develop certain rituals, is a word I would use, habits that are formed for whatever reason. You described feeling empty physically or emotionally.
Say physically, which then I don't know. Physically, I didn't have any food in my system for quite a while, and I just felt like, I don't know. I felt empty physically, but then that was kind of refreshing. It was just like, okay, no, it's a bit of a new start. Uh,
Hmm.
so yeah, um,
Okay. So I'm going to dare to say the sick part of the brain latches onto something and goes, oh, hello. I like this. I think we can play with this.
yeah,
We can
yeah,
do something with this. That's the way I interpret what you've described. um, for me, when I discovered certain rituals and habits, same thing. There's a part of my brain that goes, oh, hello. Oh, we can do something with this. And it does, unless we have the ability and the skill set and the mindfulness to go, no, 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 no. This is not healthy.
yeah, yeah. Um, and I didn't.
Well, we're yet to develop that part of us, unless we already have it, I
Yeah.
would say, So, all right, well, so that's where you're at. Continue.
So I'd say for then I went on to restricting my food quite drastically. Um, I went vegan, and I love dairy and I love meat. I do. Um, and that was a complete just restriction for me. And I told my parents it was all about the environment, um, and everything, and they believed me. Um, but it was just another way to just quickly cut out so much of my diet. Um, the only day I didn't, I still allowed myself some days, which, as I say, um, my eating disorder mixed with me, said, on Christmas Day, you can eat what you want to eat. So then on Christmas Day, I had a full blown Christmas dinner because I was like, no, I want this. Then the days afterwards, the punishment for that. Um, and I think it got about until February of the following year. So this was in October. So February of 2020. So just before COVID was really about to hit,
Yeah.
I had been hiding it all, and I'd been seeing some people over that time, and I cut things off with them because my eating disorder started to become my personality and my drive and focus. And at this age, I was about to do my GCSEs, um, and I am a perfectionist and love to achieve um, high grades and high marks. So my focus in life was on my eating disorder and my grades. I was like, I don't have time for men. I don't have time for anything else. So I cut those things off, and I knew there was a problem at that point, that I'd started to slip too far, and that it wasn't just a restrictive, I don't know, disordered eating. I was right around. It was an eating disorder at that point. Um, And I remember one day doing some artwork, because art also was a big part of my life. Um, and I accidentally cut myself with a scalpel, um, and I fainted. And I only did a tiny little cut on my finger. Um, and my mum and dad just looked at me and they went, "Mm, why have you fainted?" And I was like, just was really faint. And they looked at this tiny little, like, pretty much paper cut in my hand. They were like, that's not right. Um, And they said, have we got a problem? And I just looked at them and I said, we've got a problem. Um, and luckily, I don't know whether luckily is the right term. My in my family there are histories of eating disorders as well. So my mum, I think, knew,
Mm.
which meant that the support already, or maybe the awareness was there.
Mhm.
She could understand that something was wrong. So that's when, straight away I was assigned to treatment in the UK, like NHS run treatment.
Okay.
That way. And that was where my first direction was towards. Um, and yeah, it's when kind of I felt, fuck, people are trying to take this away from me. Now I've told people this is my problem. Now they're trying to take it away. No, I don't. I just want you to know that this is going on, but I don't want you to take it away from me. It's mine. You can't have it.
Yeah. How dare you?
Yeah, exactly. And that was all starting to bubble and happen. And at the same time, my GCSEs were becoming closer and closer and closer. And then boom, COVID,
Mm.
and no school, no interactions. My main focus, which was my eating disorder and both my GCSEs, I had no control over my GCSEs because I wasn't going to sit them. And being extremely wanting to, be academic and get grades, etc., etc. I was just like, well, fuck, what the fuck am I supposed to do? I can't see my friends. My family know this thing about me, and when I'm around my family, they're just trying to protect me from this eating disorder. And I don't want them to.
Yeah, it's an inconvenience. Leave me alone.
Yeah. And then COVID comes along, and now I have to just spend all my time at home. And I don't have any control over the rest of my life. And none of us did. Which I think was, again, the even more scary part, is that it wasn't just, it's global, but it wasn't what I was feeling. It wasn't just happening to me, it was everybody. But rather than finding a community kind of in that, I didn't have that understanding. It was more just despair, like, God, we're
Mm.
gonna die.
This is really. I'm glad you're sort of, because there's so many people. I mean, there's countless people that are still in the aftermath of. There's a huge fallout, mental, emotional, physical, spiritual fallout from that time.
Mm-hmm.
There's some people that just evolved from it and grew and took the opportunity, and there's some people that are still struggling with the aftermath of that. So I'm glad you're diving into this. Go on,
Yeah.
sorry, continue.
Well, from then onwards, it was about February until May, which was the depths of my eating disorder, because that's when I really, really had to find control from somewhere, and my brain convinced me, and my addiction convinced me that this was the right place.
Mm-hmm.
And it's when I became verbally abusive to my family. I restricted my eating so much that I would spend hours to attempt to eat something. And I over-exercised immensely.
And how did you do that? How did you do that?
Yeah. Working out in my own privacy, a secrecy, without my family seeing, or running up and down the stairs, or running around in the house. And it was all secret. It was all my own thing until I was found out. And then it was, how can I divert? And the manipulation that I manipulated the fuck out my family. And I lied all the time. And when my family knew, because they knew, I would tell them to fuck off and that I hated them. And then I would go up to my room, or I'd go and hide, and I'd crawl into a ball, and then I'd would say I'm sorry and hug my family.
Mm.
And 2 minutes later, I'd be over exercising, or I'd be flushing food down the toilet, or I'd be, you know, um, in trying to find a way out again, because I felt so and utterly um, sad and scared and out of control. Like I had, I had nothing to rely on. Um,
Can I just ask you?
Mhm.
Thanks for sharing that. It's really brutally honest what you're sharing. Um, at that time when you was experiencing all of what you just said, was you aware? Because you are now talking with hindsight and you've done treatment, you've obviously done a lot of work on yourself. Excuse me. Was you aware that there's like two parts of you? You know, like a twin persona. There's like that sick part that I was talking about earlier. You know, there's this part of your being, the brain, the thoughts, the whatever behavior that just isn't your true authentic self. It's just the sick part. And then there's the other part, which I just said, the authentic true nature, you know, the real you.
Mhm.
Was you aware at the time that you was in that battle, that sort of like struggle of good versus evil, if you want to call it that?
Yeah. Well, I'd say for the majority of those couple of months of being at home, I wasn't. Um, but then there were some moments um, where I knew, because I felt so utterly upset and sad with myself, for having to do these things that my eating disorder told me to do.
Mm.
And I remember once trying to escape, let's put it that way, my house, because I wasn't allowed to go out on a walk that day. Um,
How far would you have walked that day? 30 miles?
Probably 200 meters that I wanted to go on a walk for. Um,
Okay.
but because I was so unwell, I wasn't physically able probably to do those things, and it would put too much
Yeah.
strain on my heart. Um, and I remember trying to escape, and my dad locking the front door, then me running to the back door, him locking the back door, and then me running to the windows and trying to get out the windows, and my family all just standing around, just looking at me, just crying and saying, "Daisy, stop, Daisy, stop, Daisy, stop." Um, and then I then just I then just looked at them, and I turned around and I just fell to the floor, and I just said, "I'm sorry." And then I stood up and I just hugged them and I said, "I'm sorry, I'm sorry, I'm sorry." And that's when I knew there was a piece of me still there.
Yeah, of
Um,
course.
because seeing my family so utterly um in despair and so powerless too, and then me, acting in this way and telling them to fuck off and
Mm.
running around the house, like that isn't who I am.
Yeah,
Um,
of course.
and so in that sort of regard, yeah, I knew there was a piece of me still there, but for a lot of the time there wasn't.
Because we don't want to. No one wakes up and goes, "I'm going to be a fucker today." You know, I'm going to reap havoc and cause everyone around me absolute fucking hell. You know, no one does that. It's just there's a reason. There's a driver, there's a driving force that's truly greater than us at that point that we're
Mhm.
yet to comprehend or deal with, you know.
Mm,
Go on.
yeah, exactly. Um, so then I remember it getting to my eating disorder was very much present. And it was after my 16th birthday that on my 16th birthday, I remember saying to my family, I want to eat what I want to eat today. You don't get to decide. Um, and my dad crying at my breakfast meal because I didn't eat anything. And my family all ate around me. There were cupcakes and cakes everywhere, and I didn't touch a single thing. Um, and throughout this time, I am very lucky that my mum was looking for help. elsewhere because she herself needed it, but I needed it too. And because of the history of my family, and the experiences that some of my other family members have had with eating disorders, my mum, had a kind of awareness that she wanted me to go somewhere else or try somewhere else with treatment, because other places hadn't worked for other family members. And she offered these, treatment facilities or ideas to me, and I just turned my nose up at her and was like, fuck off, I'm not doing it.
And was that because you was heavily in denial still? Or, yeah, obviously. Fuck off.
Fuck off. And I think also denial, but then mixed with, I don't want the help, I don't deserve the help too. And I'd say that is, the shame from past experiences continuing with me, and kind of how I don't, and my extremely low self-esteem, feeling, even if help was available, I'm not the one who should be getting it.
Yeah.
And
Shame, I'll just interject, shame and low self-worth. Very potent combination, really debilitating. When you've got insurmountable levels of shame, that you feel you have it about yourself and your life and whatever. And that's what for me, our journeys, our stories, very different, but there's a lot of similarities. I was consumed with that, that sort of debilitating sense of shame and low self-worth and remorse and sorrow and sadness. And that all equates to, poor me, I'm a fucking victim here.
yeah, exactly.
You fuckers. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So for me, that's what kept me stuck, Fuck you lot.
Yeah.
Nah. I feel shit. Nah. You know what I mean?
And it is exactly that was intertwined with it all too, is feeling like I didn't deserve, and there was you could say a lot of self-pity wrapped up in all of that. But that was the reality of my experience at the time, and I didn't understand what was going on, but that I just felt so utterly disappointed in myself. And I hated myself. And then actually my eating disorder then became, in the same ways with other addictions, it was a way for me to then feel, well, at least I've done this, and this makes me look better, or this. And it's what I want to make, not I want to make clear, but to share, is that the eating disorder for me, there was an element to the way I looked and everything, but it was never really about that. It's kind of, that's how I felt on the surface of, this is going to make me look better or everything. And that was kind of the tiptoe at the beginning of the disordered eating, but it wasn't, it was the feelings and the power that it came when I fell into my eating disorder, that actually that gave me a sense of purpose. And my eating disorder was Daisy, and it made me feel, proud is the wrong word, but it made me feel safe. And even though it's the complete opposite thing to safety, controlled and everything, it isn't. I think there's a perception of eating disorders, and there still is a stigma around eating disorders as just being, just eat, like we buy. And actually that leads me on to how I'd say I got into recovery, is through different conversations with different doctors and everything. I remember having a conversation with one of my doctors, and they said to me, Daisy, if I told you if you had depression, would you start eating again? And I looked at him and went, no. And actually, the way I got into recovery was realizing that I do, and that through the self-pity and through the neglect and everything, I do deserve a better life. And actually, that's when I started to eat again. Force feeding didn't work for me, and I am very grateful that there were other outlooks in recovery for me to go into, where then there were other options. But I think the first thing that people always go to is, feed them, feed them, feed them, feed them, and then they will feel better. And I agree with that as well, because when I started eating, you're present. If you think about energy and everything, food is food.
We need food. The
Yeah.
right food. The right food. We need it.
Yeah.
I need it. You need it. Yeah.
Yeah. And I don't want to deny that, but actually realizing that I do deserve a better life, that's what was the switch.
Mm-hmm.
And that is how my recovery completely started. Because I realized that this isn't the life that I want or deserve, and this isn't the life that my family also,
Mm.
um,
Do you think that doctor you mentioned, he, she, do you feel they were very, well, it sounded like they were very significant. They planted a really significant seed of thought for you to reflect on, do you feel?
I think at the time I hated them. And I said, when they told me that, I thought they were, they said, if I told you have depression, we start eating again. And they said, no. No, I said, no, sorry. And they said, okay, that's why we, feed you first. And I obviously I was just floating about. I wasn't really deciding on anything. But then when I look back at that, I do see that as the significant, I don't know whether, because they weren't, that wasn't a facility or the treatment that I experienced that actually allowed me to realize that previous experience. Just, I reflect on it now and I go, this is a way of recovery that this facility treats, and I can see how that works for other people, but it didn't work for me. And that's why I stayed, I don't know, stuck for a little bit longer, but also because I was annoying. So that's why I stayed stuck too, because I didn't want to give up just yet.
Great change is met with great resistance, as they say. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So you weren't quite ready yet. You weren't quite ready yet. So you still had a little bit more control to play out.
Yeah, exactly. And yeah, the week before kind of my recovery kicked off, I that last week was the biggest control week of my eating disorder, if you can say it, put it that way. I remember saying to myself in my head, this is the last week I can do anything.
Go out with a bang.
Yeah, yeah.
So without naming, because obviously, I don't want to be promoting any place. It's for other people to do the research and find a place that works for them if they feel they need somewhere like that. But how did you come across the place that you ended up going to?
My mum
Word
did
of
a lot of
mouth.
research. Yeah.
Oh, research. Okay.
And we just took a risk. Well, obviously risk, but what's the better option? But yeah, I ended up going to a treatment facility, not in the UK, because of previous family experiences and different treatment facilities and different experiences they had. We took a risk somewhere else, treatment facility in Europe. And I'm very grateful for that experience, being able to go away.
Yeah, it's great. So I think it's so significant that what works for one person doesn't necessarily work for someone else. It's really subjective. It is a lottery, as I always say. And well, it's evident that, you got the numbers right. So you started your journey when, to recap, that was, what year was that? How long ago was that?
That was in 2020, May of 2020.
Wow, slap banging COVID.
Yeah.
Boom. Okay. What was that like, going away to a strange land, going to a facility?
It was a bit dystopian. I mean, it was tough as well, but in terms of COVID intertwined with all of that, um, it was very, being in the airport especially, that was bizarre. It was completely like, there was no one there, and it felt like I was going to some faraway fairyland where I'll come back and hopefully be a completely changed person. But
I missed that time. I was doing a lot of traveling, being on the front line. I was transporting a lot of people like yourself. I was transporting people from point A to point B to get help, and I really missed that time. I don't miss why it was like that, of course, but I miss the freedom of just going to an airport and there being like 10 other people just hanging out, and like literally the same amount of people maximum on a plane. Not even that, it's so nice, so nice. I miss that so much. Anyway, so do you feel that served you when you was going away, it being chill? Did you feel like you was, because manic, your head, manic, is that a good word for where your head's at?
incredible way to describe it. Um, well, I mean, I think there was a lot of, I forgot to mention that there's a lot of fear with COVID for me. And I got to a stage in my in my eating disorder, sorry,
Mm-hmm.
where I didn't want to live anymore. And I never tried to take my own life, but I felt so in despair that I didn't want to be here.
Mm-hmm.
And the thing that actually not forced me, what's the right word to use here, that made me believe that recovery was the next best option was COVID. Because I didn't want to die of COVID, I wanted to die of my eating disorder, and I was told I was going to die of COVID first.
That's really interesting, actually, that thought process behind that.
Yeah.
Can you elaborate?
Yeah, so when I went to see one of my doctors back at home, they, being very, very codependent on my mum still throughout my eating disorder, they took my mum out of the room and they said to me, "Daisy, obviously you're extremely underweight, blah, 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 blah." And I just sat there like, again, not taking anything in. They just looked at me. "You turned 16 now though, haven't you?" And I was sat there like, "Mm-hmm." They went, "So you're not a child anymore?" And I was like, "Oh, yeah." And they said, "So when you get COVID, because you will, because you're underweight and your health is fucking awful, you'll go onto a COVID ward with other people who are dying of COVID. And you will die of COVID. You won't die of your eating disorder, you'll die of COVID." And I just sat there and I immediately just felt so utterly afraid because COVID was a big out of control thing that I couldn't, get any grips on. And none of us could. And like I said earlier, that despair that came with that. And actually, I said to mum when I left that appointment, I just went, "Fucking send me away. I don't know. I need help." And that was my first,
Wow.
because
Wow. Yeah.
I didn't want COVID to get me.
Wow. That's pretty cool. Like, I mean, I use the word cool. It's not cool at all, but you know what I mean. Like, as in, what I'm saying is cool is the fact that that kind of was a catalyst that made you, that flipped it, that took it, that put you where you needed to be.
Yeah.
So that's why it was cool. That's what I mean by that. Fuck.
Yeah. So, when I dissed COVID earlier, I'd say it's what escalated my eating disorder because I was trapped,
Yeah.
but also, as I would say as well, partly what saved my life. Uh,
Yeah.
so weird relationship.
It's mad how we process shit when we're in that place, you know, how we make things, we believe stuff, we create narratives, and we're convinced. I mean, it's all to do with control, right?
Yeah.
Do you think control?
Yeah, exactly. And kind of how I just didn't, well, I didn't have any control, and then because I didn't have any control over anything, control was my eating disorder, and then because I couldn't control my eating disorder and control, and COVID was going to kill me, then it was like, no, I don't want COVID to kill me. So then it flipped in another way, and control the biggest.
So you end up in treatment. It was a treatment program for several weeks. Sorry, I couldn't say that right. How did that go? Was you subscribed from the offset? It sounds like you were sort of like, oh no. Explain, describe, take us through that journey.
So it was a 10-week treatment. The first 5 weeks, I hated every single step of it. And yeah, I really, really, really struggled. I struggled being away from my family, which I wasn't really expecting, because all I wanted to do was get away from them at home. But I think that struggle came because, as much as my family tried, I manipulated them so much that then I got my way. Whereas in the treatment, I couldn't get my way. You know, they'd seen people like me for, I don't know, every single person there was like me, so we couldn't get away with fucking anything.
Oh, they call your shit out, man.
Yeah,
They do it differently. They do it differently where you went. Definitely, I know how they do it. You don't get away with shit.
I didn't get away with anything. Well, it was.
Well, no, you probably did, but you know,
Not
anyway.
But it was really tough. But having that tough love made me realize that I deserve a better life. And it's when I got to around 5 weeks into the clinic that I then just said, you know, like I started to believe in myself again. Because I realized that there was not something to save, but that there was a part of me still there, and that part of me isn't this awful person that I'd given myself a narrative of throughout my life, that I was this, you know, not good enough or unlovable or damaging human. I started to realize that those narratives weren't fair or true. And then, like I described it earlier, that's what actually allowed me to start eating again, is because I realized I deserved, rather than that I had to keep taking.
And do you feel in where you was at, there's a community for the first time, I would say, correct me if I'm wrong, you land yourself within a community, a group of people that are similar age,
Mm.
that you know, everyone's got different stories, different things, but there's a lot of similarities, right?
Yeah.
And
And
you feel part of something for the first time.
yeah. And obviously, before going into treatment, I'd felt completely separate from any other person I've ever met or I've ever, you know, and then going in there were just 20 daisies, and I thought, oh fuck, I'm not so special. But that we all supported each other, but we also knew each of us had gone through things that we had, relationships together because of those things. And maybe not necessarily the actual experiences themselves, but more the feelings and emotions and the self, like the judgment and all those things. I shared that with other people, and it actually felt it felt freeing for once, rather than, I don't know, like trapping. That's not the right word, but you understand what I
Yeah,
mean.
yeah. And I've been through a process myself, different to yours, but I've been through a process where I'm with, the community, the group, the we. Because before that, it was just me on my own, me, I, my lonesome self, thinking I knew best when I didn't. And then, like I connect to these people who are sharing parts of me. They're like you say, they're sharing. It's like there's a load of Daves out there. And I'm like, fuck, and this is amazing. It's empowering to know. It's a great comfort. Do you feel like I got this? Do you feel that it wasn't just about connecting to that and being part of that? It's actually about contributing to it as well. Not just what I can get from it, it's what I can give to it. So, did you, when you was in there first 5 weeks, you said it was like, you was probably fighting it. But then was there a defining moment where I can imagine that you helped someone in some way, like we do, you had that conversation with someone who was struggling and you went, oh wow, this feels good to actually help someone. I have
Yeah,
some purpose here.
yeah, yeah. And that again was the continuation and the drive to keep going, to keep recovering, to keep, treating myself better and loving myself on that path. It was sharing with other people, okay, yeah, I fucking get it. Like stuff is shit, it's tough. And like sharing that with other people in treatment, but then when I came out of treatment, that was a big drive for me to keep going forward. And hearing that from other people too, again, was a big drive for me to keep, moving. Because change, it was not being stuck. And when I shared to others, I hopefully can help them on their journey for not being stuck and being trapped by addiction. And when others do the same to me, I learn from their experiences and then I take on that. And if it doesn't fucking work, it doesn't work. But then, I hear from somebody else and then I remember what I did, and all of that started and continued my journey of deserving a better life and taking care of Daisy.
Mm. Yeah, yeah, yeah. It's truly remarkable that we can go from like, absolute control, manipulation, coercion, all of that stuff, and coming from a place of fear and all of those negative driving forces. And then all we got to do, it sounds like a simple premise, but it's fucking hard to do, is just let go and trust a process,
Yep.
like blind faith. Like literally, I've just got to trust that there's something in this for me.
Yeah.
Do you feel, can you remember a moment where the lights came on and you was like, I trust, I'm beginning to trust there's something in this for me now. This lifestyle, this way of doing it.
Um, when I was in treatment, yes, I had, even though it was like up to the 5 weeks and I still was battling and kind of holding on and not letting go completely. I Because I was aware of what I had done to myself and family, and through tough love of being in treatment and seeing other people and, getting the raw shit and just going, kind of throwing it in my face and going, this is what you're doing. Through that, I started to behave, behave differently. That's the wrong. I started to feel better, which sounds weird, but I started to, like feel like I deserved more. And actually, I don't want to bring it back to you. I don't want to go backtrack on what I said earlier, but when it was the first time I was weighed in the clinic, but not like blindly weighed. So I got to see how much I weighed. And I only knew my weight from before I went into the clinic. And when I was weighed, I was shocked by how low my weight was. It's the lowest I've ever weighed, and it's the weight that I saw. And even though I felt mentally better because I had started to believe in myself, that hadn't really come out in my actions yet. I just started to feel it. And I remember looking at the scales and just shouting, fuck, fuck, fuck. And everyone looking at me like, what's going on? And I just went, fuck, I weigh not enough. I'm not taking care of myself. And everyone went, yeah,
Yeah.
of course. And that was when it was the freedom with food came then. Because I that's when the behavior switch from just emotional to, acting was. Then I went, I deserve to treat myself better too, not just mentally, but also physically.
Wow. Significant moment then. And that was round about the 6-week mark, something like that.
Yeah, pretty much just after 5-6 weeks, halfway between two, when I started to actually think I deserve more.
Because I learned early on that it takes dedication and a heart. My heart's got to be in it, and I've got to be dedicated to the cause. I have to. It requires discipline. It's a day-to-day thing, moment to moment. So from that point on, is it fair to say you had this new sort of burst of energy and attitude that you was like, right, I can do this. I want to do this.
Yeah. I'd say from that day on, I have been determined ever since to believe in myself and not go back to my eating disorder. And I want to make a key point here, which is coming onto my life now and where I'm at, is that for the last 5 years since I left treatment, my main focus in life has been to not go back to my eating disorder. And that has, it's been the most incredible thing, because it's, that determination and the work that I have put in, and I'm going to give myself the credit, is has saved my life and has meant that I can help others too, and has meant that I have a life that I haven't, that I couldn't have imagined before I went into treatment. But I've just hit a wall as well in my recovery. Maybe a wall's the wrong term. Another step, a hurdle to jump
I
over.
mean, it's okay to call it a wall because you can climb over it,
Yeah,
or go around it, or smash the fuck through it. Don't worry about it.
Is where I now deserve a better life, not just because of going back to my eating disorder, because I still do, Daisy does. And I think that is where my recovery path has changed in, very timely conversation in the last 3 weeks, probably, where I have had experiences like going to, the wins of going to college by myself and going on a foundation year by myself all across the country, and then going to university. These things have built me and have, allowed me to have new experiences that will cherish forever. But also now I know that I have got to do this for me too, not just for Daisy with an eating disorder. And the reality of that is that currently experiences that I find challenging, is I look at them the same now as me going into treatment or Daisy with an eating disorder, and they're not comparable. So the fears are irrational.
Mm-hmm.
The behaviors aren't rational either. So I end up acting out in, oversharing or doing other things, because that's what helped me when I first got into recovery, because I needed that support. But now actually it's creating these unintended consequences that are leaving me trapped still in a news cycle.
Yeah.
Or not my eating disorder, but my biggest fear is going back there. When actually the reality is that's not going to happen, because I don't want that, and I won't let that happen, because I have the power now. Power. I believe in myself now. That's maybe a better.
I think power, though, power is a fair word. I think it's a very good word, because pre-recovery, not just talking for you, talking for myself, talking for everyone, and I will say that, there is no power. Power fucking-less. Quite evident, you know what I mean? But the irony is, the irony is that we think we have all the power because of that control and manipulation and coercion, that big fat fucking ego and all that bullshit. But it's not healthy. It's far from it. And there's lots of evidence, undeniable stacks, archives, libraries full of the evidence. But until we get past the delusion part of our thinking, the denial, we're always going to deny that and go, fuck that. Well, don't know what you're talking about. So power is a good word, I think, because we do hold the power. It's empowerment. It's empowering to, what you're describing is the layers of the onion. It's so cliche. Everyone uses this term, but it's great. The layers of the onion. And the first layer for me is always that denial that I just described. Once I break past the outer layer of denial, there's many layers underneath. And we have to just work through them. Every time it's the denial. We have to keep breaking through denial. Keep breaking through our delusional thinking. That fucked up part of Daisy, the fucked up part of Dave. And we have to work through them. And that's our life journey, is just keep, slowly, in our own time, in our own way, working through the layers of evolution. Sounds so cosmic, doesn't it? And that's empowering. That process is empowering. Isn't some sort of, I think there's this, spoiler alert, everyone, it ain't just like, you suddenly have this moment of enlightenment and then that's it, you're good to go for the rest of your life and shit don't happen and life is all gravy. That's not been my experience, and it's not the experience of a lot of other people. It's life happens, but you're present now. I'm present in our lives on life's terms. Shit happens, and it's how we react to that. In a skillful way. And you are doing it to the best of your ability. And when you hit a wall, as you call it, it's okay, man. You just got to figure out how to get around it, over it, or smash the fuck through it. And don't let it stop you.
And that's exactly, well, the work that I still have to do, because I believe in myself that I'm not gonna, be Daisy with an eating disorder, but I still don't believe in fully in Daisy. And that is still where my work, lies.
But that's the self-discovery part of recovery.
Mm.
So like for me, I'd say the first 5 years is me just staying very, very much building my foundations of me just recovering, right? For me to just be in recovery from whatever it is I'm recovering from. No different to a sporting injury, I need time, and everyone's different. We all heal and process that healing in different ways. No right or wrong. So for me, roughly there's a certain amount of time that I need just to do that process, to be really concrete. I'm in this. It's a lifestyle change. My heart's in it and I'm dedicated to it. And then once you lay those foundations, you can build on that day at a time, moment to moment. And you're not going anywhere. And you trust that. Because for me, it's asking yourself the question, do I trust myself? Yeah, I fucking do. Definitely. I know I do. When I got to that point, it's all good. But until I get to that point, I feel a little bit like, you know, and I don't know where you're at with that.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing is I know this is current therapy work that I'm doing, is that I do trust myself, and I trust myself that I won't go back, but I don't still feel like I'm still, kind of dancing with the self-pity, which of I still deserve to, shut down the negativity of my own brain
Mm,
and believe. And I think the biggest thing with that is kind of ever since I've left treatment, I've been in recovery from my eating disorder, and I've worn that kind of not as a badge, but I've said, I'm Daisy recovering from an eating disorder and in recovery. But there are other things that I battle with, still, like anxiety and perfectionism, and that have become very present within my experiences at uni recently. And
mhm.
that, to me, I brushed off a little bit. I was like, you know, there's a lot of people out there who have some general anxiety sometimes, and who struggle with perfectionism, sometimes, and it's just normal. And I do still, I think that that is a general experience that others go through, but it doesn't mean that I have to deny myself from uh, trying to push past these things. And I think the best way to describe it is I saw it as more flippant. The perfectionism and the anxiety is more of just it sometimes happens, and it isn't
Yeah.
as debilitating as my eating disorder was. But looking at it flippantly up until now has meant that I still could have a life even more beautiful than the life that I'm experiencing, because I don't have to be tied down by these other insecurities or these other control behaviors,
Mm,
um, that do limit
mm.
Daisy.
Yeah, well put. This is so relevant, man, to all humans. You don't have to be in a recovery or treatment process to be affected by this. So what I found really useful, and we was talking about this before we actually punched record, right? We was just having a little check-in chat, and it was about the whole concept of non-attachment, which is something that historically, that was the problem all along, was attachment. I get entangled I get, addiction for me, it's attachment. It's being entangled. It's being, you know, the inability to let go and just be, you know, um, and the compulsion and the obsessiveness around that, and how much focus and energy I'm putting into something. And that could be anything. It doesn't have to be drugs or drink or whatever. It's how I relate to myself and my thoughts, my behaviors, my actions, and the world around me, and those people that are in that. And for me, I found it really useful to explore. Um, I found meditation really useful. I found that that was in line with what I'm talking about, non-attachment. When I can sit and just be and see that actually I don't have to, I don't have to cling on to things. I can let things go. And there's nothing I know more powerful than the ability to be mindful of that. And how do I get that mindfulness? Meditation. It's a fucking no-brainer. And it's free. It doesn't cost any money. So I invested some time and energy and effort into doing that. And I explored that as part of my recovery. Huge part of my recovery is the first 5 years was just me landing in recovery. And then I started to explore other avenues to give me a broader set of skills and ability and you know what I mean? used to come on my groups. I always used to talk about this. So I started practicing it, and it's evident in my life that I could start to disentangle with certain things, including labels and ideas and thought processes and behaviors. And that's been my experience. And I see other people that explore this realm, and they have the same experience. So there's something in it. So non-attachment to, is Dave am I mental? Hi everyone, my name's Dave. I'm mental.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, of course. The evidence is there. I've been a little bit nutty in my life, but I'm also really like the opposite of mental. I'm really grounded, measured, and all of that stuff. So, am I defining myself to that label and that association? How do I see myself? Do I want to attach to the mental part of me? No, of course not. I can if I want to, and I will if I want to, but I won't, and I don't. And I've let go of that sort of way of doing things, because it doesn't serve me. I'm freer and more empowered when I practice non-attachment.
Mm.
That makes sense.
That makes perfect sense, and it's so inspirational, and I think that's where the next steps in my recovery lie. And it's like what my therapist spoke to me. I had a recent chat with her, and she's an incredible lady as well. And she just said, Daisy, what do you want to be like? And I said, sometimes I just want to be able to have an extra half an hour in bed and then not ruin my day. And she's like, there we go. Like it's the little things, but the little things is what there's still a part of me that doesn't want to let go of that, attachment, because I'm scared. And that's the reality of it. I'm scared that if I let go, I will go back to step one. And it's the how to describe it? It's the not discipline, but it's the way in recovery I've taught myself to be proactive, be active, and to be working on myself, because I deserve that. That actually that now is limiting me a little bit, because I can't relax, because I've got to be doing something, and I've got to be doing this, I've got to be doing that. And actually, you know, I am in a place where I trust myself that I won't go back. So then let go of the rest of it.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, that's
You'll get there. You'll get there because you're in a place where you're open to it. That's obviously, as that's like step one, isn't it? Is like, pretty much being open to,
it's like steps again.
yeah. So, I think that's the most important thing is like, that first layer of the first layer of the onion. Peel that one away, right? So you have no, so you have clarity. You're clear on what you want. What is it I want to do? Don't worry about the how too much. What is it I want to do and why? I think you're clear on that. What is it I want to do? Why is it I want to do it? So the how do I do it?
Yeah.
So that's the bit, just to step into that bit. And there's no right or wrong. It's like, for me, I talk about meditation because it really, really worked and fitted in with what I was trying to achieve, non-attachment. Because what we get caught up on is what you're describing, is it centers in my thought. My thought process keeps tripping me up.
Yeah.
It's the thing that's causing me to second guess things. There's irrational fear. Some of it I'm creating, some of it's probably coming from other people, or ideas,
Mm.
or whatever. But you've got to just, I'm not telling you what to do it. I'm just saying we have to just fucking think for ourselves. No one knows what's right for you. You're the only one, and you've got to work that out. And the only way you're going to do that is if you go and do it.
Yeah.
And trust that, and be okay with trusting that.
Yeah. And it's change again. And I think that's another scary part, is the big change that I have had coming into recovery and the big changes throughout my recovery up until, and it's 4.5 years. Yeah, it's 4.5 years since I left treatment. So up until this mark now,
Mm.
it's I've experienced so much, and I've had to struggle with life, but viewing it differently to how I used to view it, and having that drag me down. And it's that last, well, not that last. There's probably more change in my life that's going to have to happen in 20 years time, and however many years time. But it's the next, yeah, it's the next wall to climb over. That it's just change and being open to it, and it's something that, as control freaks,
Change doesn't come easy, man.
no.
So it's just getting used to that, just letting go, not attaching to, and stepping into, the unknown. It's a scary place, but this is where faith comes in. And I'm not talking about, it having to be a certain faith. As soon as I say the word faith, there's an image of what faith means. But to me, faith is just a very good, healthy, strong, supportive sense that I'm held in life. And some of that comes from me, of course. Some of it comes from community and other people that I choose to have in my life. Some of it comes from good old nature, because I love walking and, being held in that space. And some of it is unseen and unknown. I can't even comprehend what some of it is, but there's something.
Yeah.
And I choose to see that as, some sort of supreme, and all of that's my faith. And it's, it's up to us to sort of explore that and develop that and to trust it
Mm.
and to be in that space. That's the way I see it anyway. Works for me. So you're an artist.
Yeah.
You're an artist, a fellow creative.
Mm-hmm.
So what do you want to do with your life, Daisy?
I mean, ideally, I'm studying photography right now. If I could just become a photographer and just produce my work in galleries and earn millions, then no, I'm joking. I don't fucking know, and that's okay at the moment.
That is okay.
I'm just, I'm, I'm just enjoying being at uni and working in something that I am actually really passionate about.
Yeah.
And before I didn't have that. It was all, yeah. I mean, when you're younger, you have a lot more different areas to go into, but being able to just do the one thing that I know I love, it's
Mm-hmm.
really, really lovely.
Amazing. Do you like to travel?
I do.
Yeah. So I can see you, being one of those. I've forgotten his name. I always forget his name. He's a really amazing photographer that has taken some really incredible photos of just moments in time, snapshots in time all around the world. I mean, that'd be amazing, wouldn't it?
Documentary used to be a really big passion of mine, and I wanted. There was a part of me that wanted to become a war photographer,
Wow.
and then I realized my work was still tailoring currently towards more of a fine art practice, which I didn't really understand at the beginning, but it's either quite
Mm.
political or self explorative, and all these different aspects that are still. My most recent project is very timely to kind of the epiphany I've kind of just had in my life, um, and which is why my work, which is why I'm so connected to like my practice, because it is very therapeutic. Um,
Mm.
and sometimes it switches from being that, and sometimes again it's about letting go a little bit and actually just having fun with it too, because there's a part of me that likes to keep pushing and keep playing, and when actually, because it's something I love and I'm so passionate about, it can also just be something completely separate, something completely different, just a passion. And it's balancing those two as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I found creativity when I reconnected to it, because I disconnected from my creativity artistically when I was in my madness, if you can call it that. And then I reconnected to it in a big, big way, when I reconnected to my true self, got my ego out of the way, and all the mad shit. So, do you feel that's been your experience as well?
Yeah, definitely. And this term I've been exploring like surrealism and subconscious in surrealism, which is a whole other tangent, but kind of the tapping into the subconscious and then creating work from that again is very similar to that too. But then it also relates to my, greater perspective, because I start to see things that I didn't realize was there before personally about me. And yeah, it's creativity and being creative. I find it so freeing.
Yeah, it is. It really is. Expression, right? It's like having a voice. And I think that's the big problem um, with most people, including myself, is we have to find our voice, you know, and that voice doesn't have to be, the sound wave of the voice. How do we express ourselves? How do we say what we need to say? And be heard and feel like we're being acknowledged, because that's a big part, right? Big part. All right, look, I think we're going to end it in a minute or two or so. So I wanted just to, I want to. It's a real cliche thing to say, but if you could, like the person you are now, the person that you are right now, because you're still becoming, Daisy is evolving. I'd say you're at this place now where you've got the foundations. And I do think that I agree with you. I believe that you're here. You're not going to go backwards. It's a fear, it's a thought. Don't attach to it.
Yeah.
Just keep going forward and focusing on who am I, what do I want to become, and just go and do it and go and become whoever you want to be, because you can be anyone, right? And I believe you're going to do that. You're already on that trajectory. You've gone back to college, uni. I mean, it's great. It's amazing. You're in life, right? Um, so you're in this process now of who is Daisy, this journey of self-discovery. So you're wiser. I know you do help people. You stay connected, and I know you share your story like you've so kindly done today, which is amazing, to help inspire people. How would you inspire the sick Daisy if the you now was to come face to face with the Daisy in 2019,
Mm.
or even before that? When you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And you had a chat, you had a little chat, a little, you know, motivational chat. What would you say?
I would firstly give her a big hug. Um, and then I'd just say, don't stop believing in you. And I think that's the main outtake that I still have to, keep going with me, like you just said. But it's belief in Daisy, not in all these other things that I assign myself to, and the belief in me that is the best feeling. And I've experienced it in treatment, and I've experienced it in recovery, and I'm experiencing it now again, is that I deserve to believe in me, and that, you know, that's that's good enough. So
I am enough. I am enough.
yeah, and I'll tell her that.
Oh, and I like the hug thing. And I think that it's really important that, all of us as humans, man, all we're looking to do is to, to feel that
Mm,
on some level. And it's so important. So do you feel like you've now stepped into that? You've given yourself a big hug.
Yeah. The hugs keep on coming. Or there were very much a lack of self-hugs. I remember actually early on in my recovery, actually just as it turned New Year's recently, I was outside looking at the stars and I danced to some music. It's a big hug.
Oh,
I was there, out there so kind of with myself, which was I don't know if my neighbours saw, hopefully not, but it's one of those things that, yeah, being able to be with myself and hug and love myself, that's what I need now, and it's what I needed back then.
100%. Thank you so much for sharing that, because that's a really, personal, sacred thing you're sharing. And I'll share the same. I was taught by some great people, and they were men. And this is coming from guys, boys don't cry and all that bullshit. Fuck off. Like I was taught to smile, at myself in the mirror, to smile, to look at myself with kindness and also to hug myself. I don't give a fuck if I sound like a knobhead. Like I did it. I've done it and I do it if I need to. If there's not a hug available, hug yourself. Do you know, like, I'm not sure. I'll say it anyway, fuck it. Buddhist monks, I've heard Buddhist monks share that, you know. As part of my journey was to go to some places to explore what them lot were getting up to, and I got some great wisdom from them. I dared to ask. I was curious, and I've been told face to face with them. We hug. If we need a hug, we hug ourselves. They seem pretty fucking happy to me. Anyway, give yourself a hug, man.
Yeah.
Everyone. Yeah. Okay. All right. Well, look, Daisy. On that note, I think we're gonna.
Thank you for having me.
You are very welcome, and yeah, I expect a ticket to the what's the show? What do they call it when you do an exhibition at a gallery?
An exhibition or
Oh, I just said it, didn't I? I'll be
yes. Bye bye.
bye bye.